Hello everyone. I'm online, isn't it? Hello everyone, and many thanks for joining today's live stream. New summer from Moscow program. Happy Friday, and I wish you a great upcoming weekend, of course. And let me just finalize a couple of things here. Okay, I'm good to go. I wanted to check that everything is working properly. So it is 23rd of January, of course, and as always, I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments, and there is quite a stuff to discuss during this live stream, of course. Before I start, although, let me say that if you appreciate my work, dear friends, if you are regular on my programs, please help me to maintain this project and subscribe to my Patreon page. Monthly subscription starts from $5 there, and a little more on Boosty. Depends on exchange rate, basically. Links are under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. And well, I cannot exaggerate how important it is, even impossible to exaggerate how important support from Patreon and PayPal is, by the way. Sorry, Patreon and Boosty is to maintain this project, as it is the case, of course, with their donations through PayPal and Boosty, of course. But I'm dreaming now, like 2 years, isn't it, to double our community, to double on Patreon and Boosty, and unfortunately, this is not happening. And if you appreciate my work, please subscribe to my Patreon, or if you hate Patreon for whatever reason, you can subscribe to my page on Boosty. As I said, links are on this video in the description box and in the pinned commenter. Same time, of course, you can use PayPal for donation, and during the live streams now, you can use Super Chat feature on my Rumble channel. I'm streaming on both channels, of course, simultaneously, both my channels on YouTube and Rumble, and you can use Super Chat feature on Rumble to highlight any topic you want and simultaneously donate to this project. Okay, that's been said, dear friends, and I know some members of our community are not happy that I'm every now and then talking about support of this project, but this is the only way truly independent project can survive, by the way, right? If you see channels that are not asking for support, then one should ask question, I mean, what the hell? How that is possible? Are these people multimillionaires or they have some other fundings and stuff like that? So when channel depends on community supporter, that's a good sign, right? Anyways, let's go through some news now. And if I may, I will start with a short summary on a situation on the battlefield in the zone of special military operation. Some members of our community are, constantly or regularly asking me to pay a little more attention to battle map. And even though I'm not military expert, I'm not military channel, never positioned myself or my project to be as such. Every now and then, of course, I'm sharing information about developments on the battlefield, especially when it comes to some major stuff. But anyways, let's go through some updates that we have in Kherson direction. There was no major changes, at least in no reports about it in Russian media. In Zaporozhye direction, major hotspots still are surrounding areas of Primorsk, which was liberated just a little while ago. Russian troops are also advancing in Novo-Yakovlevka, Magdalinovka, Zapasная direction. These are settlements, by the way, and this movement is basically tasked to cut off main supply and support line of the Kiev regime's forces in Orekhov city, of course. Orekhov is a major stronghold of the Kiev regime, as many members of our community know, on the central part of Zaporozhye sector, and the Russian troops are further advancing and improving their positions on the most eastern flank of Zaporozhye sector. After establishing full control of the Gulyai-Polye city, Russian troops are now working to strengthen the line, right, and to get as close as possible also to supply and support lines that are used by Kiev regime's forces in Orekhov. I guess eventually in couple of weeks' time, we will see Orekhov city being in operational encirclement or maybe in complete encirclement. I can clearly see pincer movement on part of Russian troops in this direction. Simultaneously, Russian troops are very close to Zaporozhye city itself, administrative center of the region, and currently distance between forward positions of the Russian militaries and Zaporozhye city itself is no more than 20 kilometers, 17, 20 kilometers, which is not really much. FPV drones already are operating in that direction. When it comes to Dnipropetrovsk direction, there was no reports about some major changes in Dnipropetrovsk. Russian armed forces in recent months established quite a bigger bridgehead in the Dnipropetrovsk area. When it comes to DPR, Kiev regime continues to send its militaries on some suicidal operations around Pokrovsk, which is also under full Russian control now, of course, and their main hotspot is Grishina settlement. Fierce fighting is going on now for control over the Grishina. Also, there are reports and some videos are circulating that Kiev regime's forces conducted local-scale offensive operation in Zolotoy Kaladez area, this village, by the way, and in central part of this village, few Russian military personnel was taken prisoner, POWs. Hopefully, they will be treated according to Geneva conventions. Although when it comes to Kiev regime, this is hardly possible. The Russian militaries know this perfectly well, and if I was on line of contact, I would definitely blow up myself if there is no other option, but would not surrender. Just yesterday, I believe, or day before yesterday, Russian ombudsman Maskalkova is a surname, isn't it, if I remember correctly, shared information about execution, torture and execution of two Russian POWs that were depicted on a video when they were taken a prisoner. And during a recent exchange of the bodies of the killed military personnel, Russian side received bodies of these two militaries, two Russian militaries, and both were tortured and killed. In one case, heart was removed from the body, and obviously when there is such information, straight away speculations began that the regime is harvesting organs, not just from its own military personnel and foreign mercenaries when they are wounded and ending up in our hospitals, but also they are torturing and killing and harvesting organs from Russian POWs. Investigation, of course, will reveal truth about this matter when special military operation will be finalized, and hopefully all the criminals that committed these horrible atrocities will be punished as severely as possible. So a few POWs were Russian militaries were captured in Zolotoy Kaladez. Settlement is in a gray zone now, and fierce fighting is going on there. When it comes to Konstantinovka direction, one of the few major strongholds that Kiev regime is still holding to, Russian troops are advancing. The Russian troops achieved significant advance from southern flank of Konstantinovka and entire this area, by the way, including northern banks of Gruenbaum Big Water Reservoir is under Russian control. Entire this area have been cleared according to military sources, and Russian troops are advancing now in the direction of these settlements. Stepanovka, Dolga Balka, Raskoshna, Russian troops, DRG's forward units already are operating in and around Berystoka settlement, which is basically outskirts of Konstantinovka. And when it comes to city itself, Russian troops are advancing inside the city from eastern, southern eastern, and the northern eastern flank. And a significant part of the city is already under Russian control. Russian militaries on several occasions stated, high-ranking militaries, that about 50% of Konstantinovka is controlled by Russian forces. I don't know how accurate this statement is. I'm not there, but Russian troops definitely are present inside the city. Also, Liman direction, Liman Slavyansk direction. Russian troops are very active in this area, and in Liman city, for example, Russian troops are entering the Liman city from three directions: from southern, eastern, and northern flanks. Russian troops also advancing on the western side of Liman. This gray zone, by the way, on the northern western side of Liman is a contested area right now. Russian militaries are operating on both banks of Seversky Donetsk river, and I guess once Russian troops will reach this forestry, we may argue that Liman is in operational encirclement, because relief on the ground, landschaft on the ground, by the way, will make it extremely difficult for Kiev regime's forces in Liman to receive any reinforcements or any supplies. Some channels in Russian segment of internet already are reporting that all the supply and support lines of the Kiev regime garrison in Liman are under Russian fire control, artillery control, drone control. Well, might be the case, obviously, but of course, physical control will make it is needed. Physical control is definitely needed, and once Liman is liberated, then well, there is a open way towards Slavyansk, Kramatorsk agglomeration. In the Kharkov direction, in the Kharkov region, of course, a major hotspot is still Kupiansk. Russian troops are neutralizing these suicidal attacks of the hostile forces. There are different rumors. Western propaganda or pro-Ukrainian propaganda loves to push the narrative that Kiev regime's forces are in charge of almost the entire city. I never take those claims seriously. I think reports of Russian militaries are correct, and Russian militaries on several occasions stated that Kupiansk is under Russian control, and I'm not going to doubt this report, really. And when it comes to Kharkov direction, also, Russian troops recently began creating another buffer zone on the most northern eastern flank, and Degtyarovo settlement have been liberated. Russian troops are expanding the gray zone now, and their battles are taking place for Krugla settlement, for example. And also a number of sources are reporting that Russian troops on very same Kharkov direction established control over the Semyonovka settlement. This is on the southern western side of from Volchansk city. And I guess soon we will receive report about Grafskaya settlement being liberated, because this settlement is already basically in encirclement, because from northern side, eastern side, Russian troops have established their positions. And take a look at the relief, by the way. There is no way Kiev regime's force is going to be able to maintain their presence in Grafskaya much longer because of the terrain. They are cut off basically from major supply and support lines of them from Kiev control the territory. Also, when it comes to Kharkov region, it is important to notice, I think, that according to a number of media reports, Kiev regime has begun fortifying Kharkov itself. So they are expecting Russian offensive in the direction of city of Kharkov. And Russian troops are not far away, by the way. It's only like 30 kilometers from forward positions of the Russian troops to Kharkov, right? So it's not that far away from line of contact. In the Sumy direction, Russian troops further improving their positions, further increasing this buffer zone, right? And reports are coming in last several days that Russian troops are about to begin clearing operation in this massive forestry that is basically shielding city of Sumy itself. Russian troops are getting closer and closer to this forestry area, and now battles are taking place for these tiny villages front of this forest that you can see right now on your screen. And I guess this is it, by the way, for a short summary about developments on the line of contact. Initiative is in Russian hands all along the front line, and in all circumstances, as I have said many times before, either Kiev regime or their Western masters will be able to regain the initiative or to turn the tide. Of course, if you want more detailed information about every single sector, I recommend military channels for that. That's their specifics of their work, right? They are providing great volume of detailed information, but I'm not military channel, by the way. I'm analytical channel, news channel, anything but not the military channel, right? So, okay, that's being said, dear friends, let's go through some other news. And of course, you know that there was a meeting between Russian leader Vladimir Putin and representatives of U.S. administration yesterday, or I should say today, early morning, by the way. It was not even yesterday. Meeting actually started after midnight, and I was very much upset about it because why Russian president, who is not a young person, by the way, right? Why Russian president is having a meeting with the representatives of US at night, and this is happening every time Witkoff and Kushner are visiting Russia. They are always visiting late by local time and holding meetings at night, basically, right? Maybe this is strategy on their behalf, or maybe they are counting on Putin being tired, less focused on the matters during the talks, right? It's I don't think this is random stuff. And I think this is definitely a miscalculation, in my personal opinion, on part of presidential administration of the Russian Federation. If Russian president himself feels good, okay, he's ready to have another 3-4 hour work negotiations with American representatives. I mean, there is a protocol service, there is a security service, there is other services in the Kremlin administration that should tell Russian president that no, you can't do this, right? You are president of the country. You cannot overload yourself, right? But I guess no one is telling Putin anything that to oppose him or something like that, because this is, and you will agree with me probably, dear friends, that this is not okay when president of the Russian Federation is meeting with some freaking nobodies from America at night. If this was a president of US, okay, I mean, president is visiting, both have like difficult schedule and stuff, and okay, I can understand if meeting is this late, after midnight, right? But who the hell is Witkoff and the freaking Kushner? And they bring with them another nobody, by the way, from US, right? So what the hell? This is a big mistake, in my personal opinion, because clearly American side using these late meetings as leverage, right? They want this is part of their strategy. They want Putin to be less focused, to be tired, right? After a whole day's work, to be tired, less focused, and maybe they think they can slip some stuff during the talks, right? And Putin will agree or something. I paid attention to this nuance, by the way. Maybe it's nothing, but I think this is serious stuff. There is no rush. This meeting could take place this morning, right? What is the issue? Why at night time? But anyways, let me give you some details, by the way, on that. So RIA Novosti reporting about statements of aide of Russian President Yuri Ushakov after this meeting took place. So President Vladimir Putin and their White House special envoy Stephen Witkoff discussed bilateral relations and their conflict in Ukraine in Moscow. Kremlin spokesman, he's not a spokesman, by the way. I mean, what the hell is wrong? We did a translation on the RIA Novosti. Aide of Russian President Yuri Ushakov reported negotiations, and this is quote, lasted for about 4 hours and were exceptionally substantive, constructive, and I would say extremely frank and trusting, said Ushakov, which is not really good stuff to say, by the way. Trusting, extremely frank and trusting. Okay, now you have a extremely frank and trusting talks with the representatives of Trump's administration, isn't it? I mean, that's something that you should hide, man, if you actually trust them, right? Because no one else does. Literally, no one else in this freaking world trusts anything that comes out from Washington or any other Western capital. So what are you saying, Ushakov, man? What the heck? This is not a diplomacy, man. You just don't have to say anything. You know, conversation was substantive, constructive, and that's it. That's enough for diplomatic purposes, right? To describe the talks. But extremely frank and trusting and friendly, and we are best buddies now. You're gonna go that far? I mean, really? Anyways, let's go through some details here. Some key points from Ushakov's statements. The meeting lasted nearly 4 hours. Russian and United States agreed that the first meeting of the trilateral working group on security issues would be held in Abu Dhabi on Friday, today, by the way. They're going to be meeting in United Arab Emirates, in which delegations from US, Kiev regime, and Russia will participate. The Moscow delegation will fly to UAE soon. It has received specific instructions from President Ushakov said. The security working group included representatives of Ministry of Defense leadership, headed by the chief of GRU. GRU is military intelligence, by the way, of the Russian Defense Ministry. General Staff Igor Kastukov. The heads of the bilateral economic affairs groups, Kirill Dmitriev and Stefan Witkoff, will also meet in Abu Dhabi to discuss frozen assets. United States has done a lot to prepare for the trilateral negotiations and is counting on their success. Yeah, United States did a lot. Yeah, they did a lot, by the way, to initiate this proxy war against Russia and to be major force among our enemies in this proxy war. And US still is the number one enemy of Russia. Let's make no mistake. US still is a major force in this proxy war that Western ruling class is waging against Russia. And I'm not buying this bullshit that is coming from the Kremlin about US being a freaking mediator. US is not mediator, right? And this is insult to our intelligence, right? And these people in Kremlin should understand that they are insulting our intelligence while imitating, right? While playing these games with the American leadership, as if they really are negotiators or mediators or something. They are our freaking enemies, man. Enemies. And they are guilty of that of tens of thousands of our fellow countrymen. What the hell is wrong with these people, man? But let's continue, nevertheless, sir. Let's continue with the rest of the statements of Ushakov. So despite Moscow's interest, the conflict remains elusive. The Russian armed forces retain the strategic initiative on the battlefield and will continue to pursue the objectives of their strategic objectives of their military operation. US officials are already making plans that could be implemented after their fighting ends. Okay, whatever. The main thing, and this is quote, main thing is that during these negotiations between our president and the Americans, it was once again stated that without resolving the territorial issue, according to the formula agreed upon in Anchorage, there is no point in counting on achieving a long-term settlement. And also, let's not forget root causes. Root causes have to be addressed. I don't know, maybe they didn't discuss this time around root causes, but if root causes are not addressed, what kind of settlement can be reached then? Minsk-free? That's what we are heading towards, Minsk-free? Because it seems like, it seems like time to time, it definitely looks like Moscow is about to sign up for another Minsk agreement. Minsk in the quotes, obviously, right? Something like Minsk-free, which will be a grave mistake, obviously, right? And we all understand this. They also touched on the issue of creating a peace council on Gaza and the situation around Greenland. All talks in the Kremlin, Russia confirmed its readiness to send $1 billion to the Gaza Peace Council. Putin earlier stated that this billion can be taken from frozen Russian assets in the US. And another quote: the remaining funds from our frozen reserves in the US could have been used to restore territories damaged during the fighting after the conclusion of a peace treaty between Russia and Ukraine. The American delegation shared their impressions of their contacts in Davos. Ushakov also said, and that's about it, by the way. That's all key points from Ushakov about this meeting. Nothing of a breakthrough type, obviously, nothing extraordinary. But yet again, I do have an issue with this attitude of Moscow or Kremlin, let's say, towards the US ruling class, US leadership, that implies that America is somehow, or American leadership is somehow mediating, not a part of the war, because they are actually, but they are kind of mediators, which is yet again insult to our intelligence. US is not a mediator. US is a side in this conflict, and everyone who has freaking brains understands this and knows this, right? So why we are playing these games, man? I mean, what is the point, right? If you don't want to say something, if you don't want to escalate, let's say, rhetorically, you don't do it. Don't do it. But don't pretend that US is a somehow positive player, right? Or positive side in all this tragedy. No, man, this tragedy happened because of the US, right? And US involvement in 2014 coup d'etat, for example, in Kiev. And US sent, according to Trump, by the way, hundreds of billions of dollars to kill Russian citizens. US sent a lot of weapons to kill Russian citizens. US is not mediator. US is not friend. US is an enemy of Russia and Russian people under their current political class there, right? I'm talking about state. I'm not talking about peoples, obviously, right? I'm talking about US ruling class and US as a state under their control of this ruling class. So that's what Ushakov went to say, and yet again, man, it's freaking nonsense there in many ways, right? RIA Novosti is also reporting, and I already mentioned, by the way, that Witkoff and Kushner bring another nobody with them to have a conversation with Putin. And this nobody is Josh Gruenbaum, commissioner of the Federal Acquisition Service of the US, General Service Administration. What's going on, man? Maybe you understand better, by the way, that I do, because I don't freaking understand. Who the hell is this John Gruenbaum, man? He is not even appointed as a freaking aide of Trump or something. He is just a freaking nobody from administration. Commissioner of the Federal Acquisition Service of the US. General Services Administration. Okay. Okay, and I have a question also. With all due respect to American Jewish community, but is there any Catholics left, any Christians left in the US that can represent this, last time I checked, majority Christian country? I mean, honestly, is there any Christians left in the US, by the way? No? Just something that is just hard to avoid, man. What the hell? Are negotiating with Israel or with the US? Yet again, with all due respect to American Jewish community, that is not guilty of crimes and are not in support of crimes that Israel is committing, right? And there are many Jewish people, I'm 100% convinced in that, many Jewish people in the US that are absolutely opposing all these crimes that Israel is engaged in and guilty of. But nevertheless, I mean, US is a Christian country, man, and why it's not represented by Christians? I'm not religious or like a nationalist, I mean, if you can say this way. But I mean, I think this is a legit question. Because when I see these reports, man, it definitely seems like we are negotiating with Israel, man, not with the US, right? Which is also quite strange. I don't know why this another nobody, this John Gruenbaum, was involved in these talks. His position says Commissioner of the Federal Acquisition Service of the U.S. General Service Administration. Maybe they talk about supplies of Russian, I don't know, man, uranium or some other stuff that U.S. needs, right? Titanium details, and I don't know, man, what they discuss, but probably they talk about some deliveries, some supplies from Russia to America. Okay, maybe. I already mentioned, by the way, that they're going to be meeting today, trilateral meeting in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, between U.S. Delegation, right? Delegation of the Kiev regime and the Russian Federation. And already all sorts of speculations are shared on the internet. What is going to be number one or secondary points of the discussions? And a number of sources reported that one of the topics of discussion will be energy ceasefire. And this topic was pointed out by Western media. But they're going to talk during this meeting not just about territories, which is understandable, but allegedly also about some temporary measures that Moscow already said numerous times that will not be acceptable for Russia. So if today we will find out that Moscow agreed on temporary truce, energy truce, then yeah, that will be also something to keep in mind, right? And one more reason or one more indicator or explanation why very few people, especially in the West, now taking seriously any statements from Russian leadership. Just saying, man, and there was very many statements about this and that, and how we're going to react on in that case and another case. And all I personally see is restraint, constant restraint, especially in regards to NATO member states that are directly engaged in this war against Russia: US, UK, France, Germany, others, right? And yeah, maybe one of the topics of discussion will be actually this energy ceasefire. And who knows, man? Moscow might agree on that. Or Russian president might say, okay, let's do energy ceasefire. That will make Russian militaries probably go crazy. But what they're gonna do, man? Putin is the Russian president. If he says they're going to be energy ceasefire, that means they're going to be energy ceasefire, by the way. He is a president, man. He is a president. And I guess very many people already regretting this, man, big time, right? Very many people, I'm quite sure, by the way, are having a hard time to understand what the hell is going on, right? With this constant restraint and their attempt to please the US ruling class. Very strange, right? Very strange, but nevertheless, let's see what's going to happen. And one can understand why would enemies of Russia in the West and their proxies in Kiev would love to see temporary measures in place. For example, energy ceasefire, because, for example, this report that I have shared, I did share this morning on my Telegram and Twitter X page, that according to a number of sources, emergency power outages have been implemented in many regions of so-called Ukraine, still under the control of Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky, including Odessa region, Nikolaev, Dnipropetrovsk, Kharkov, Poltava, Chernigov, Cherkasy, and so on. And the situation with the energy supplies are not that great in Kiev itself also, right? And if we agree now on energy ceasefire, somehow, for whatever reasons, then of course that will ease the pressure on our enemies big time. That will ease pressure on our enemies big time. That's how it is. And when it comes to energy, by the way, well, Western ruling class is so emboldened with the extreme politeness of the Russian leadership and the extreme kindness of Russian leadership and the extreme restraint policies of the Russian leadership in regards to Russian enemies from NATO countries, from NATO, let's say this way. Western ruling class is going crazy, man. They are really, really emboldened. They committed numerous crimes against Russia with total impunity, and even French president is going. I mean, he's acting like a tough guy now, right? This freaking nobody, Macron, so-called president of France, in reality, prostitute of Rothschilds, is acting tough guy, right? And pretending to be like someone of importance. And because he is a president, formally, he's a president of France, he actually authorized yet another hijacking of a tanker that is linked to Russia. And we have this report, for example, RIA Novosti is reporting that France hijacked, let's say as it is, France hijacked tanker in the Mediterranean Sea en route from Murmansk. Probably full of oil, right? Probably full of oil. So French military forces detained the vessel traveling from Murmansk according to Mediterranean Maritime Prefecture. And we have quote here, Navy personnel boarded the tanker Grinch, which was sailing from the Russian port of Murmansk. The purpose of their operation was to verify the identity of the vessel, which was suspected of using a false flag. The statement said, and Macron himself, by the way, French President Macron responded positively to the incident. He stated that the vessel belongs to the so-called Shadow Fleet and a judicial investigation has been launched. Okay, man. Soon, probably, if we do nothing, if Russian leadership continues to exercise this politeness towards the NATO member states, friendliness, kindness, extreme kindness, right? No retaliations, no nothing, by the way, just restrain. Let's do restrain, by the way, right? That will help, of course. So soon, I guess there gonna be no freaking vessels left, right, outside of the Russian fleet, actual fleet, that will dare to enter Russian ports, right? Because they would not be happy to be freaking hijacked by these terrorist regimes from NATO. Correct? So that's definitely going to be distraction. It is already, by the way, significant distraction in terms of logistics, right? Because almost every every other day now we are receiving reports about yet another vessel, commercial vessel linked to Russia, has been hijacked by NATO member states. And soon, I guess, we're going to end up in maritime blockade. Yet again, if Moscow continues to exercise this politeness and restraint, and Moscow might do exactly that, because there is no indicators that Putin has any plans to change his policies or the strategy. He seems to be happy with how things are going, right? And okay with that. So yeah, if there are no changes in Russian approach, if no change from approach of the Kremlin, right, then soon we're gonna find ourselves probably in maritime blockade. Okay, this is very bad, but yes, I mean we are democracy, right? Democracy. And there are people elected Putin to be leader of the Russian Federation. I did not, by the way. I will never vote for Putin for sure. And yeah, I guess very many of them that voted for Putin are asking questions now. What the hell is going on, right? And there are some people are beginning to laugh. And this is a better sign, by the way. This is a bad sign. When people are beginning to laugh, that's an indicator of the stress. This is not good laughing. And just go through some comment sections, by the way, right? It is important. I myself always paying attention to the comments, and not just on my channels, but on other channels too, because this is one of the ways how you can try to have a more or less good understanding of their opinions of the peoples, right? And yeah, when people beginning to laugh, by the way, and ironize, become sarcastic whenever something like that is happening, Russian tanker or Russia-linked tanker being hijacked or another hostile step from the West, that is an indicator that, patience of the people being tested. Because this is not a good laugh, man. This is something else. And I mean, Kremlin should have enough experts, by the way, in the field to understand what's going on, right? Putin is still highly respected. Let's make no mistake, he is still highly respected. Political figure here in Russia, has majority support, 100%, by the way, I don't doubt that. But more and more people are asking questions. More and more people are asking questions. Okay, anyways, another Russian vessel being hijacked. Well, what we gonna do, man? Not Russian, Russia-linked. Let's make it correct. And when it comes to make things correct, by the way, yesterday, if you remember, I said that I was talking about crimes that Denmark has committed against humanity. I mentioned atrocities Denmark committed against Greenlanders when people in Greenland, females, by the way, for example, were sterilized. And this is factual information, by the way. You can check her on internet. I said that, I mixed up at some point Denmark with Belgium. And I said King Leopold committed also numerous crimes and genocide in Africa. And members of our community correct me, rightfully so, that King Leopold II, right, was not a Danish king, but a Belgian king, which is correct, by the way. And many thanks for members of our community for correcting me. And I will use this opportunity to make it clear now, to correct my yesterday's statement, right? Of course, Leopold II was a Belgian king, not the Danish king. In the Congo, by the way, according to many different reports, in Congo, population was halved due to genocide committed by Belgium royal family and their servants, right? But nevertheless, I mean, no one should have any misunderstanding. You know, neither Belgium, neither Denmark are these tiny, cute countries. They are led by genocidal maniacs, right? This is historically accurate statement too. Also, by the way, that's being said, that's being clarified. Yes, Nidish Kumar is commenting now in the Congo. Yes, Congo was created by Leopold II, right? And they wanted the caoutchouc from Congo, some other stuff, right? And they were genociding locals. And reports are, by the way, with the suggestions that up to 50% of their population was killed in the Congo. From 30 million, population went down to 15 million. That's why Leopold is a hated worldwide. He's one of the most bloodthirsty creatures ever lived on this planet, rather. Anyways, that's being said. Let's go through some other news, right? And yesterday, on sidelines of World Economic Forum, Trump had a meeting with Zelensky, who was rushed into Davos because earlier Trump said during his speech that he will have a later on that day meeting with Zelensky, but he could not because, according to reports that I also shared in my updates, Zelensky was unable to organize the meeting with the Trump, right? And at one point, his team stated that Zelensky has canceled his trip to Davos. But because Trump mentioned him, maybe Trump was not informed, maybe some misunderstanding had happened there or something, I don't know. But Trump mentioned Zelensky, that he's going to have a meeting with him, and Zelensky was rushed into Davos. They had about hour meeting, right, talk. And after that, only comment Trump give basically is that, they call these talks with Zelensky very good. That's all, right? Pointless waste of time, basically. Because if there was anything else to say, Trump would say. But it was a pointless talker. I have no freaking idea why Trump mentioned Zelensky, why he agreed suddenly to have a talk with him. But yes, that's the only comment Trump gave her, that it was a very good conversation. Okay, Bob. And during his flight back to US, and he already in US, by the way, he arrived there. He was talking to journalists on board of Air Force One, and he said that he predicted basically further territorial losses for Kyiv regime if they would not agree on a peace, which is in this particular case correct. Although you don't have to be genius, obviously, to understand that if Kyiv regime will not accept Russian terms for the escalation, and when I say Kyiv regime, I mean Western ruling class, generally speaking, then of course next time around, Russian terms will be much tougher than it is now. It's just simple fact, right? That's how it's going to be. But well, it is good that Trump kind of understands that if Kyiv regime will not, and globalists, basically, they're globalist masters, and the European regimes that are controlled by globalists would not agree on Russian terms now. Situation for them and terms Russia are going to deteriorate further, and the Russian terms going to become tougher when they will come around these peace talks again in a year's time or 2 years' time or whatever. Right? And on the topic of Zelensky, by the way, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi reacted on some tough words from Zelensky directed to Iranian leadership, and Abbas Araghchi did not waste time to react strongly. Let me give you his statements, by the way. So, addressed directly to Zelensky. Zelensky has been rinsing American and European taxpayers to fill their pockets of his corrupt generals and to confront what he calls an unlawful aggression in violation of the UN Charter. At the same time, he openly and unashamedly calls for unlawful US aggression against Iran in violation of the same UN Charter. The world has had enough of confused clowns, Mr. Zelensky, Abbas Araghchi said to him. Unlike your foreign-backed and mercenary-infested military, we Iranians know how to defend ourselves and have no need to beg foreigners for help, Araghchi said, and good for him, by the way. Good for him. Definitely, more governments worldwide have to say it straight as it is when they are commenting either Zelensky or anyone else from that terrorist regime, Western proxy terrorist regime, right? So good on Abbas Araghchi, by the way, and Iran definitely can defend itself. Iranian people know how to fight, 100%. By the way, they have a long history of exercising warfare, right? And everyone knows that. Everyone that has any knowledge of history knows that. And I'm quite sure, by the way, Iranian people, Iran has very many friends worldwide, and if necessary, these friends will stand with the people of Iran, 100%, right? 100%. RIA Novosti, meanwhile, is reporting that Ministry of Internal Affairs of Kyiv regime had urged citizens to prepare for a possible departure from their Kyiv-controlled territory, not just from the cities on the Kyiv-controlled territory, but completely out of their side towards the Europe. That's how many media outlets interpreted these statements. Let me give you some details. Due to energy crisis, the Ukrainian Ministry of Internal Affairs is urging citizens to prepare for a possible departure. Strana UA reports, citing the ministry. Strana UA is a propaganda outlet of Kyiv regime. And, yet another indicator why Kyiv regime and its NATO backers would love to see temporary measures in place, including a temporary energy truce, because they need some breathing space, by the way, right? Russian strikes were very effective. And I have said a million times, by the way, all the Russian president have to do is to untie the hands of the Russian militaries and security services, and they will do the job, man. Nobody here in Russia has any doubts that if hands of Russian militaries and their security services are untied, they will finish the job in very short time. But for whatever reasons, Russian militaries and security services are forced to fight with both hands being tied behind their backs. And we know why is that, isn't it? Restrained policy of the Kremlin, Okay, man, restrained policy. How many people have died for this restrained policy, man? How many of our countrymen died for this restrained policy when we could use all the forces necessary to deal with the situation, We could finish this stuff, this war, long time ago. I have no doubts about it, including, if necessary, with deployment of nuclear weapons, including against the NATO member states. That's what nuclear powerhouse does when attacked. or should do when attacked. But it did not happen, unfortunately, and therefore this war that West is waging against Russia continues already 4 years. And who knows how many more people gonna die because of this restraint that we are exercising. For what exactly purpose, man? Why are we exercising this restraint? Why? When it is so freaking obvious that Western ruling class is an existential threat for humanity, right? And has to be neutralized. And Russia is in a position to neutralize this evil force, and has every reason to neutralize this evil force, and we have not done it yet. Why? Why? Did Putin forget what he said once when asked about a war between NATO and Russia? I mean, you remember, isn't it, dear community? Putin said if there is a full-scale war between NATO and Russia, well, we will go to heaven and they will just die. That's it. There was an answer there, right? There was an answer there. And Putin was demonstrating willingness to go all the way. It seemed like. What has changed, man? I don't know. But yet again, horrible end is better than unending horror. This is true also, right? And I'm quite sure, by the way, if we take care of globalists, let's say, and globalist control regimes in Europe, European ruling class, let's say, the US would stay away. US would not get engaged there with a full-scale war with Russia. Impossible. I'm quite sure about it, right? So there would be no extinction level event. We would just neutralize this evil force that the whole world knows as globalists, or European ruling class, let's say. And then we will take care of American ruling class too. Not necessarily with the same way, but we will find necessary steps for that, right? To avoid full-scale war with the US. Anyways, by the way, some mass exodus might happen from Kiev-controlled territory, and European countries should allocate necessary funds to support potentially millions and millions of citizens of this former Soviet Republic, Ukraine, to provide them with everything necessary, because they have to. European societies, European countries, and obviously European elites are 100% responsible for the tragedy that is going on right now. They are 100% responsible for this proxy war that West is waging against Russia, and they have to pay for this crime. That's it. RIA Novosti is also reporting that Ukrainian armed forces have begun actively strengthening defense structures near Kharkov. I already said that. Soon we might see advance of the Russian armed forces towards the city of Kharkov itself. Meanwhile, Viktor Orban, by the way, Prime Minister of Hungary, is not happy. Not happy again with Brussels, with the Kiev regime, with globalists, right? And he stated Ukraine is asking EU for 1.5 trillion euros over the next 10 years, of which 800 billion euros is for reconstruction and another 700 billion for military purpose. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban stated, and you know what? Good luck with that. European Union, man. Soon it's going to be not just Hungary or Slovakia, for that matter, that are completely opposing this madness of their globalists and their control regimes in Europe. But some other countries going to join them too, because eventually they will just run out of assets, man. Many European countries are very close to run out of weapons that they can send, to run out of money that they can send. Many European countries are almost there, and Czech Republic just confirmed that a few days ago, isn't it? In 2024 or something, Czech Republic promised their planes to Kyiv regime, right? And a few days ago, they said, no, we can't do it. We just have nothing left to give you, right? So if Czech Republic relatively rich EU member state is saying so, then other countries that are experiencing significant difficulties in economy, even bigger countries, definitely are somewhere close to that point when they literally have nothing left to send, right? So they're going to be 1.5 trillion that Kyiv regime will receive. But there is a high probability that tens of billions of dollars until this conflict will end with absolutely uncontested Russian victory, with absolute Russian victory, by the way. Let's make it clear. Western ruling class will lose this war no matter what, right? So when this conflict will end with absolute Russian victory, by that time, by that moment, European elites, globalists, they still gonna make sure that they have allocated on their accounts, on their bank accounts, and for their sponsors, including from military-industrial complex, at least a couple of hundred of billion euros. Not 1.5 billion, trillion, sorry, not 1.5 trillion euros, but they still have time, I'm afraid, to steal at least a couple of hundreds of billions. And they will, by the way. Everything will be justified by this non-existent Russian threat. And then the Russians are coming, so therefore, give me another 10, 15, I'm going to take another 10 billion euros. Day after, you can again say, you know what, Russians are coming, give me another 20 billion euros. And like that, every month, they will take these tens of billions of euros. And eventually, it will sum up to few hundred billion, isn't it? From now to a point when Western ruling class will finally acknowledge that they lost and will capitulate. And they will, bother. They will. One way or another, but this day is coming when Western ruling class will capitulate. This day is coming. RIA Novosti is reporting also that, Trump and representatives of member countries signed their so-called Peace Council Charter yesterday in Davos before Trump left for US. The document was signed by Armenia, Argentina, Azerbaijan, Bulgaria, Hungary, Indonesia, Jordan, Kazakhstan, self-proclaimed Kosovo, Pakistan, Paraguay, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, United States, Turkey, and United Arab Emirates, also Uzbekistan and Mongolia. Initiative author Donald Trump attended the ceremony, and as far as I understand, Trump gonna be sort of a chairman of this Gaza Peace Council or something. Okay, good that Russia is not there, by the way. Hopefully we're not gonna sign up for freaking nothing, right? And Belarus, I did not see Belarus here among signees for this nonsense. Although earlier there was reports that Belarus will join this invention of the Trump. Hopefully they will not, right? And even though Russian president and his representatives indicated a few times that Russia can give $1 billion, and every of these countries, everyone has to pay $1 billion, by the way. That was Trump's demand, right? And there was indicators from Kremlin that US can take billion from frozen assets, although Russia is not among countries that sign up for this stuff, right? And I wonder what the heck is going on there. We are just giving billion to this organization to please Trump, or we're going to sign up for this so-called Gaza Council. Let's hope we are not going to be part of this creation, right? Because this so-called board of peace is going to be anything but institution that will actually support Palestinian people and help them, right? So I don't want Russia to be part of any institution that will further enhance Israel's aggression and justifies Israelis' crimes, or diverts responsibility from Israel anyhow in any direction, right? So hopefully we're not going to be on the board of this garbage, man. And it is garbage. Let's be clear. This is attempt to divert responsibility from Israel. If anything, countries that are signees of this so-called board of peace and the rest of the world should be getting together, right, to come up with the ways how to demilitarize and denazify Israel, and how to bring to justice all those genocidal maniacs in Israel that are guilty of death of tens of thousands of civilians, including tens of thousands of children. RT is reporting that Trump disinvites Canada from his peace board, as if Canada cared that much, really. US President Donald Trump has resigned the invitation to Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney to join the Board of Peace, a new global body he hopes to make central to resolving world conflicts. And well, good for Canada, by the way. Good for Canada. Many countries worldwide are staying away from this nonsense, right? What Trump and his team are trying to achieve. On one side, it is clear they want to divert responsibility. They want to basically put some umbrella over the Israel, right? They want to serve Israel. They want to divert responsibility from Israeli criminals. This is just too clear, right? On the other hand, it seems like they want to challenge UN, sort of, right? They want to be engaged not just in Gaza, but in some other world issues also. And no, this is nonsense, right? UN has to be modernized for sure, updated, but at least we have some understanding of why UN was created, after which events, and what's going on there. But what the hell is this board of peace to challenge UN about? And which gonna be led by whom? Trump? I mean, seriously, man, this is it again, insult to humanity. That's what it is. And hopefully we're gonna stay out of this. Hopefully. Interfax is also reporting that Putin, president of the Russian Federation, had a meeting yesterday with the head of Palestinian administration, Mahmoud Abbas, and he stated that 1 billion that Russia will allocate for peace council will be spent on to assist Palestinian people. But yet again, it's if we will actually give the billion, even from frozen Russian assets, by the way, it's going to be Trump who will decide where this money will go. And Gerard Kushner, by the way, yesterday on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum was quite clear what kind of plan they have. They are talking about some developments in Gaza, by the way, to build some cities, businesses, hotels, all that kind of stuff. And they don't need Palestinians there. After yearly backlash, when Trump and same Kushner and others said that Palestinians have to be moved out from the Gaza, they are no longer talking about ethnic cleansing that openly, but we'll understand what's going to happen, isn't it? Predators, by the way, don't change their predators don't change, generally speaking, right? And Israelis and Zionists, they are bloodthirsty predators, right? And if anybody thinks that suddenly they become humanistic and life-loving creatures that respect life of everybody, including Palestinians, then I don't know, man. That someone has to, I don't know, read some more, study some more, I guess. That would be their answer. Das news agency, meanwhile, is also reporting that EU is ready to support their peace council, so-called, if its mandate is limited to Gaza. And I guess it's already clear that they are not. Trump is not interested just in Gaza. Trump actually wants her, and I believe he already said that he can be chairman of this organization after he will leave White House. So he wants to just mess around the world, by the way, with this nonsensical stuff. And I mean, I understand he is a U.S. president, but how long the world gonna tolerate this insanity? Either of Trump or Washington or the Western ruling class, generally speaking. How long humanity will tolerate this insanity of the Western ruling class? It's crazy, man. You cannot take them seriously, really. They are not intellectuals. They are not decent human beings. They are extremely powerful, unfortunately. And they gained this power from previous generations, right? They did not build nothing. They received this power in most cases. And they are degenerates, total degenerates, right? That makes them extremely dangerous. And for a reason, after all, I'm saying that Western ruling class is an evil force and existential threat for humanity. This is true, by the way. True, actually true. Those are evil creatures, man. I refuse to call them even humans. All of them that represents Western ruling class. These are degenerate, total degenerate creatures, man. Evil creatures and evil force. That's it. And the sooner humanity will understand this and begins fight, the better. Because otherwise, nothing good is waiting for humanity, man. Otherwise, humanity is doomed. RIA Novosti is also reporting that, well, you know, this topic of Greenland, right? Still makes headlines, although much less than previously, especially after Trump stated that he's not gonna invade Greenland. But nevertheless, media is reporting that Trump's and Rutte's agreement was only verbal understanding on Greenland, nothing serious. No documents were prepared, no documents were signed. These two individuals just talked between each other, come up with some ideas, and they said, yeah, we have a deal. In Trump's world, maybe that's how things work. But in real world, this is nothing. This is nothing, right? And I remind you, dear friends, the Danish government already criticized Mark Rutte and stated that he cannot negotiate on behalf of Denmark. He has no mandate for that, either on the topic of Greenland or any other topic that is related to Denmark, right? So what are they talking about? And yesterday I already said, and even before that, I was explaining my take on this whole Greenland story, and I was saying that it does looks like a freaking deception, right? This massive noise around Greenland definitely looks like a big deception operation, and we have more and more indicators that are suggesting exactly that, right? And one of the reasons, or one of the tasks of this deception operation is definitely militarization, acceleration of the militarization of their Arctics by NATO member states and creation of the ground to justify this acceleration. And already statements are being made about it, right? For example, head of European Commission, Ursula washing machine, stated that the EU will allocate part of its defense spending to purchasing equipment for operations in Arctic. We will rectify, and this is quote, we will rectify this by using our defense funds. We intend to purchase weapons and equipment suitable for Arctics, including icebreakers. So that's all it is, man. That's it. Because US never had no issues with Denmark to deploy any number of military assets on the island for Golden Dome or for anything else, right? They never had no issues with that. Denmark was actually calling US and encouraging US to do some more on island, right? Because that would be profitable. You know, Americans will spend money there in Greenland. That would be good for locals, right? In some ways. For Denmark itself also, because they will have some leverage. But all this noise was about clearing the way for extreme militarization of the Arctics by NATO member states. That's how it is. That's how it is. And we have, yet again, statements already are coming, by the way. Ursula said that, well, funds going to be allocated, their equipment going to be brought, and now NATO already plans to conduct military exercises, right? Already, by the way. It's only like 2 days since Trump said we have agreement and everything is cool now. And NATO is already planning exercises. NATO plans to conduct military exercises and training activities in the Arctic in the coming month, said Admiral Giuseppe Gavo Dragone, chairman of their alliance's military committee. Okay, so now we know. I think now we know what this noise about Arctic is all about, right? Militarization of the Arctics. Because if US wants to put anything on Greenland, who is stopping them? No one, right? And even Denmark was never against. J.D. Vance, Vice President of US, of course, had to comment on the topic of Greenland, and he went to say that US must have a right to Greenland's resources as it defends its territory. And you know what? You were always welcomed in Greenland to do some business, including in terms of resources. But for whatever reason, you did not invest America. Why? And this is, of course, by the way, just yet another deception from this time from Vance, by the way. Greenland topic was never about some resources or rare earth, to be more precise, that Greenland allegedly has, because I mean, let's be real, man. Rare earth, this terminology is quite mistaken one, right? It's a wrong terminology, because these materials that are called rare earth are not really that rare. There is a plenty of it, by the way. Plenty of it on this planet, right? What is rare is infrastructure to produce this rare earth, right? And China is number one rare earth producer because they invested in this infrastructure decades ago. They started investing in this infrastructure decades ago to process all their, everything, right? From mining to final product. And they have everything in place, right? And if anybody thinks the US is going to invest in Greenland like tens of billions of dollars to build some processing stuff, come on, man. Are we serious? In reality, it was always about, there is two militarization of the Arctics, right? And there is a two two explanations, basically, why Greenlander is become a talking point. Number one is, of course, as I already said there many times before, number one is Northern Sea Route, Northern Maritime Route, that US wants to be part of, obviously. And to achieve this goal, to have a stake in the Northern Sea Route, well, US needs to have an infrastructure, right, in a place. Currently, US is operating with two freaking nuclear icebreakers. US, and if you add all the NATO countries, by the way, number of these nuclear icebreakers will increase only slightly, because Norway has some, Finland has some, right? UK might have, I don't know, one or two, maybe not. In any case, right now, major power when it comes to Arctic is Russia, because Russia has all the necessary infrastructure. More needs to be done for sure, but Russia already operates with their Northern Sea Route. So infrastructure is that good, including dozens of icebreakers, nuclear icebreakers too. And to compete with Russia, obviously, US and its allies, they have to invest hard, man. They have to invest heavy. And that's why there was such a noise, so much noise around Greenland. That's why there was so much noise around Greenland, by the way, right? That's the one direction. And the second, I mean, we can go into science fiction if we want to. Another reason why Greenland might be interested, and this is pure science fiction, by the way, I don't really believe in this, but if world elites or Western elites have any knowledge, for example, that in next, I don't know, man, certain number of years, they're gonna be tremendous activity on the sun, and the Earth gonna lose its ozone layer, Earth atmosphere gonna lose ozone layer, and their planet gonna be cooked. Basically, that's what that would mean. Then one of the ways, one of the directions where one might seek a more or less safe underground facility is Greenland, because it's almost completely covered with very thick ice, in some places kilometers deep, by the way. No, not just tens of meters deep, but according to some reports, it's hundreds of meters deep ice in certain places, kilometers deep, potentially, right? And ice is, of course, a great reflector. Ice reflects, it's like mirror, right? It reflects almost everything. And it might be good enough for underground bunker in case of some, some major catastrophe on Earth that involves radiation. It could be a good safe place in case of nuclear war, global nuclear war, and also in case of tremendous coronal mass ejection on the sun, something extraordinary that will, take down ozone layer of planet and will basically sterilize it. This, technically speaking, this might happen, right? Sun can do this kind of stuff for sure. But this is science fiction part. A realistic part is that US ruling class wants to have a stake in a Northern Maritime Route. That's it, man. And they made quite a noise. They made quite a noise to force their allies, the European allies, to agree on investments in that, right? If eventually Europeans will fail to invest well enough, I mean, US ruling class might actually go ahead and just occupy their island. And then they will go after Iceland too in that case. They have to. Because Greenland alone is not enough. They have to go for Iceland, they have to go for Norway, and obviously they have to go for Canada. because it again, Greenland alone will not resolve nothing for the US ruling class, right? Anyways, let's continue, dear friends, with some other news and well, Middle East. I think strike on Iran is imminent. I have said this quite a number of times before that Western ruling class is absolutely Western ruling class's absolute intent is to provoke a regional war in the Middle East, to destabilize Middle East as much as possible, and to provoke conflicts on sectarian and religious lines, and then to shut down navigation through Hormuz Strait and in the Persian Gulf. That will cut off obviously China and the global South, rest of the world basically, from Middle Eastern energy sources. It's going to cause tremendous damage to China, force China to increase its dependence on Russian energy supplies to the extremes, right? And at that point, if Western ruling class succeeds, they will try to derail Russia-China relationships, to force China to launch a war against Russia, basically, in order to secure closest energy fields. And closest energy fields to China is Central Asia, obviously, right? Central Asia, Kazakhstan, for example, and Turkmenistan, countries that are rich with the gas and the oil, and Russia, by the way. And that's how Western ruling class wants to get rid of two major competitors, provoking war between them, right? While forcing China first to get extremely dependent on Russia, and then by derailing relationships between Moscow and Beijing. I'm 110% convinced that that's the strategy of the Western ruling class. %1,000,000%, by the way. I know for sure. I mean, it's a wrong way to say. I cannot know for sure, obviously. Globalists are not telling me, or the Western ruling class, what their plans are. But that's their strategy, man. That's their strategy. I have no doubts about it whatsoever. And if my knowledge, if my education, my experience means anything, then I think I'm on point there, right? I think my prediction is correct. My reading of the big picture is correct, and all the developments are pointing at it, right? Therefore, I was always saying that they're gonna escalate in the Middle East. By the way, right? This 12-day war that we see recently was just a beginning, right? Just a beginning. This operation to destabilize Middle East have started there long before even that 12-day war, right? And now they're gonna go ahead with the massive destabilization of the region. We already have seen, by the way, what is going on in Syria, right? Conflict, clearly there is already conflict, by the way, on ethnic lines, on religious and their ethnic lines, and that can easily be spread all over the region, right? Iraqi militia, Iraqi armed forces already are preparing, by the way, to deal with the situation. They are strengthening the border with Syria for good reason, by the way, right? Because they're gonna, US, UK, Israel will definitely try to infiltrate Iraq again with their ISIS terrorists, Al Qaeda terrorists, and the rest of the garbage, right? That they are in control of. And for these purposes, forces of the Damascus regime already liberated, according to reports, thousands of ISIS terrorists that were held in the prisons on the territory that was controlled previously by Kurdish militias. So process of destabilization is already underway, right? But of course, to escalate big time on regional scale, Western ruling class will go ahead with their assault on Iran. And they try constantly to destabilize Iran. A recent attempt was just a couple of days ago, right? As a result of which more than 3,000 people died. And now I think we're gonna see another wave of U.S. attacks, military attacks on Iran. Israel probably will participate again. UK most likely will participate in this attack also. Some other NATO member states too, right? And for example, already media is reporting, by the way, AP, for example, reported that Tzahal, which is IDF, by the way, IDF stated that they finalized the preparations in case of a U.S. attack on Iran. So they are ready, basically. IDF is saying that they are ready to go, right? U.S. On its part deploying more and more assets towards the Middle East. There is a little map that I saw on DD Geopolitics channel, by the way, that you can see right now on your screen. This is equipment that is directed and in many cases already deployed in Middle East. Let me go through this post from DD Geopolitics. U.S. military buildup across CENTCOM is accelerating. The Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group is now in the Indian Ocean and expected to enter the U.S. Fifth Fleet Central Command AOR imminently. Current indicators show rapid expansion of the U.S. force posture across the region. Carrier Strike Group movement into theater. F-15 Strike Eagle squadrons, 3 squadrons, by the way, now forward deployed. Increased KC 135 refueling tankers, that is, isn't it? Refueling and C-17 logistics planes have been deployed. Patriot and HUD air defense systems reportedly on a route. Yesterday I shared information that some of them already being deployed. Also, expanded naval presence across the Gulf, Red Sea, and the Arabian Sea. This is a coordinated multi-domain deployment pattern involving air, naval, logistics, and missile defense assets. A strike on Iran could happen as soon as this weekend, right? And well, I cannot tell you when exactly strike's gonna happen, but U.S. clearly is on a Western ruling class clearly is preparing the ground to attack Iran, and it's not gonna be a regime change operation, by the way. Intent of Western ruling class is to provoke internal conflict in Iran. They're not going to say it openly, right? They will talk about regime change and stuff. But in reality, they don't want to change regime. They want to provoke a war inside Iran, civil war, on ethnic and religious lines. And I reminded you, friends, that majority in Iran are majority is Persians, 50 to 60%, up to 50, 60%. Our second biggest ethnic group is Azerbaijanis, 20, 30% at least, right? It's a massive Azerbaijani community, by the way, in Iran. And that's what, and the Western ruling class wants to provoke, first of all, conflict between Azerbaijanis and Persians. That's what they want to do. And to achieve this, they might, and they will, not just might, but they will use Pahlavi, right? Son of former Shah. And they will use him because during the Shah regime in Iran, Tehran was suppressing Azerbaijanis big time, by the way, right? According to some reports, tens of thousands of Azerbaijanis were killed, tortured by regime of Shah. Shah was pushing for forceful assimilation of the Azerbaijanis, right? Their language was banned. They were committing, Shah was committing numerous crimes, by the way, right? against Persians too, obviously, but against minorities, right? And well, if can you imagine how Azerbaijani society will react if US will bring in Pahlavi, Raza Pahlavi, or whatever his freaking name is, into Iran? Of course, that will help Western ruling class to accelerate process of provoking confrontation between these ethnic groups, major ethnic groups in Iran, Persians and Azerbaijanis, right? And there is other groups too. There are Beluji people that seek independence, by the way. All they need is weapons, right? And their assistance. And they already are fighting on both sides of border there in Iran and in Pakistan. There is a Kurds, obviously. There is a big Kurdish diaspora too, right? And there are many other groups, by the way. So that's what Western ruling class is going to do. If anybody thinks that US will go in and do some regime change and it's all going to be nice and easy and peaceful and stuff like that, no, man. They are not interested in peace. They are not interested in life of people of Iran. They want long-term regional destabilization to keep Persian Gulf shut for navigation. And the only way they can achieve this is to provoke a regional war on ethnic and religious lines, because that type of wars always last. It's extremely bloody, merciless, right? And they're difficult wars to end, difficult conflicts to end. And if Western ruling class knows anything, they know how to provoke wars about it, right? All type of wars. So that's what is going on. And I think assault on Iran is imminent, absolutely imminent. Only way, in my personal opinion, only way this can be avoided is if Russia and China, maybe India will join too. That would be great. Will send their naval assets and military assets, ground forces too, in the Middle East. When it comes to ground forces, Iran has to be asked about it for protection purposes. For time being, by the way, let's station Chinese, Russian troops there as a guests. Let's call it exercises or something. Let's call it exercises, and let's bring Russian military assets on the ground, Chinese military assets, Indian military assets, right? Assets from other countries. Let's call it exercises, man. And also naval assets have to be there. Otherwise, we're not going to be able, humanity, not going to be able to deter Western ruling class, man. They will go ahead with their full-scale destabilization of their Middle East. And it's going to be tremendous strategical setback for Russia and China and for the rest of the world. An extremely dangerous one. And as I said, it's not just the US that's involved, but UK also, obviously. And Royal Air Force already has sent their Typhoon jets to Qatar, right? So British militaries will be involved in this aggression against Iran also, one way or another. Vzglyad newspaper is reporting that meanwhile, Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, by the way, recommended that Russians temporarily postpone travel to Iran. And this is, of course, also something to keep in mind, and definitely indicator that Moscow probably sees inevitability of Western attack on Iran, inevitability of attempt, at least, on part of Western ruling class to provoke a war, civil war inside Iran on ethnic and religious lines, or to provoke a regional scale war on and destabilization based on ethnic and religious sectarian lines, right? And the Russian Foreign Ministry is recommending now Russian citizens to postpone any plans that they might have to visit Iran. And these kind of warnings are not happening for no reason. We all understand that, especially when it comes to strategical partners. And Iran, officially, by the way, is a strategical partner of the Russian Federation, according to agreements that we have, bilateral agreements, right? Also, when it comes to Middle East, Wall Street Journal reported that US is considering to withdraw its forces completely from Syria. It's about 1,000 troops, by the way. It's about 1,000 troops that US has now in Syria. And after betraying basically Kurds that US did, US, UK, France, Germany, and others, there is not really point for them to stay in Syria if they are completely relying on the Damascus regime for rest of the escalation. And well, I guess Kurdish people of Syria and their leadership is regretting now big time for destroying relationships with Russia. And they almost completely destroyed the relationships with Russia. Not fully, not 100%, but almost completely. And I'm saying not 100% because yesterday, for example, a Russian, according to reports on internet, Russian cargo plane landed in Kamishli International Airport in Hasaka province, which is in northern Syria, still controlled by Kurdish militia. SDF, so-called, right? It's Kurdish militia mainly, but right? And it is anybody's guess what this plane was doing there, what it bringed in Kamishli, or who is living on this plane. I don't know what's going on, but yes, fact itself that allegedly Russian IL-76 transport plane landed in Hasaka province is something quite interesting, isn't it? If anything, people, especially Kurdish people, by the way, in northern Syria, were expecting American planes to land, right, and American special forces to come out and start doing some stuff, right, protecting innocent and so on. But no, Americans did not came, and Americans are about to leave, and they already betrayed Kurdish people, right? And there's so many videos, by the way, so many videos on internet when Kurdish, not just the militaries, but civilians being executed by these advancing forces of the Damascus regime, right? Americans didn't came, man, but Russian plane landed in Hasaka province. For whatever reasons, I don't know. I'm not even going to speculate what happened. Is Russian PMCs arrived there to assist Kurdish people, or some FPV drone operators arrived there, or maybe this is plane for evacuation only? I don't know. So there is no point in speculations. But Americans did not arrive, man. Americans are fleeing. At least that's what Wall Street Journal is reporting. You know. And a few more news, dear friends, and I will end this live stream on that. Japan's relatively new Prime Minister, Sinae Takaichi, dissolved the parliament, paving the way for snap elections on February 8th, just in a couple of weeks. The move triggered a 12-day election campaign starting today. And earlier I reported, dear friends, in one of my updates that Takaichi might go ahead with this step, dissolving the parliament, because she believes during the snap elections her party will gain a bigger majority in the parliament. Maybe this will happen, maybe not, but Takaichi already made a standard on a world stage when literally a few days after being appointed as a prime minister, she escalated with China. So one might guess what would the Japanese and Chinese relationships would look like if Takaichi will actually have a vast majority of in the parliament of people that are as hostile towards neighbors as she is. So I guess nothing good on the horizon for Tokyo-Beijing relationships, or for the relationships between Moscow and Tokyo, by the way, for that matter. That's how it is, I guess. Also, RT is reporting that India's top refiner plans to resume Russian oil purchases. Again, India's top refining firm, Reliance Industries, is set to resume purchases of Russian oil after brief pause, Reuters reported on Thursday, yesterday, and well, good, by the way. Good on this company. They will continue to make good buck, I guess, if they be able to purchase Russian oil. They might not be able, right? Because nowadays, all these NATO countries and their allies are acting as a terrorists and the pirates and the criminals, right? Not just nowadays, but since forever, actually. Let's be real here. Since forever, they were acting as a terrorists, pirates, mass murderers, genocidal maniacs. That's what they are, man. Elites of the Western world and their elites of their allies, right? And nowadays, it is not really guaranteed that vessels that will be full with Russian oil can actually reach India, right? They might be hijacked on high seas, right? But, this company, this Indian company, Reliance Industries, can try. They can try, right? Also, Vzгляд newspaper is reporting that gold prices, by the way, almost reached $5,000 already, right? Reports are that on Thursday, the price of gold at the trading exceeded the record $4,900 per troy ounce, increasing by more than 1%. And give it another couple of weeks, by the way. Maybe not even that. Just give it another week. And maybe by next Friday, we will talk about gold prices being on $5,000 already. And it's also only a matter of time, maybe a year or two, and gold will most definitely, I believe, by the way, personally, will reach 7,000 easy, matter of maybe another year or 2 years. And before end of this decade, gold will definitely be at $10,000 for per ounce. By end of this decade, most likely gold will be at 10,000 for per ounce. And this process seems absolutely unstoppable because a dollar is losing its weight, its influence, right? And more and more indicators are that all this freaking AI revolution or IT revolution in the US, and all these companies, by the way, are extremely, extremely overpriced. It's a freaking bubble, right? That's gonna go burst anytime. And more people are choosing to invest in commodities, understandably so, for savings, by the way, not necessarily to make some profits, but commodities are good for savings, right? At least you are not losing. And nowadays, by the way, I mean, profits on gold is crazy, man. It's better to invest in gold than I don't know, man, in shares, in some shares, by the way, on stock exchange, right? So yeah, this process will continue, and it's not just gold; it's commodities in general, and silver prices hit a fresh all-time high surpassing $99 per troy ounce. So, well, soon $100, maybe today even, for the silver, and silver will also continue rise, man. That's how it is. So yeah, I think interesting news, isn't it? Interesting news. Hopefully you did like the news segment, dear friends. And if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary. I see a super chat right now from on Rumble. Let me highlight, dear friends, this super chat. There was a one super chat, I guess. Chat is not showing me anything else. So yeah, there was a one super chat on Rumble. And let me simultaneously check, dear friends, Boosty. Nothing from Boosty, by the way. So just one super chat on Rumble. And let me react on that right now. And also, there was nothing from through PayPal, unfortunately. So I will react now on this super chat, and that's about it for this live stream. Later on today, I will have a second news update on my Patreon and Boosty pages. It is regular stuff nowadays, by the way. Practically every other day, I have a second news update, and ideally, I want to have a second news updates from Monday to Friday. I just missed Wednesday's second update, but yesterday I did, and I will have a second update today also. So subscribe to my Patreon, by the way, if you appreciate my work, and if you want to support her. Subscribe to my Patreon page. Link is under this video in description box and in the pinned comment. And you can see there are links to other support platforms too, just in case. Interesting comment from Danny Duval. I only donate to Putin and Trump fans. Yeah. I don't know if you are serious or if you are joking, but very many people do that, by the way, and I understand perfectly well that while being real and honest, potentially I'm losing, and I have lost very many potential supporters, right, who could support this project. But you know what? I guess that's how it's supposed to be in a way, because independent projects, in my opinion, are supported or supposed to be supported by people who want to hear independent opinions, right? To hear real talk. Because moment you start, censoring yourself because you think this opinion may not go down well with this community and this opinion may not go down well with that community, moment you start censoring yourself, you are losing yourself, basically, right? And what is the point then? I don't know. Anyways, man. This is a super chat from Jefferson Monument. Thank you very much, Jefferson, for your super chat on the Rumble and their $5 donation. And comment from Jefferson is the people who run their business where they introduce Western men to Ukrainian women. There are so many single women in Ukraine because of Zelensky's ego and his British and Brussels bosses who don't care. You are talking about, if I understand correctly, you are talking about some platforms that are organized meeting between or helping to meet females from Ukraine and males from Europe. Could be case there is a lot of Ukrainian citizens of Ukraine in Europe, anyways, right? Millions actually, and I know very many families in Europe were broken, get broke, and because of all sorts of affairs and stuff that was happening in Europe. Um, um, you know, uh, it is an issue, by the way. Of course, according to some reports, more than a million Kiev regime's forces suffered more than a million casualties. That's KIA alone, right? There is a numerous number of wounded military personnel that had their limbs amputated or something, that kind of struggle to live the life, right? And of course, very many younger uh, women in Kiev controlled territory might struggle to have a family, to build a family, right? And the demographic disaster for society in this former Soviet Republic is just enormous. It's a tragedy, man. It's a tragedy not just for society in Ukraine, but this is tragedy for Russian world, generally speaking, right? And yes, I mean, very many people, women from Ukraine will go Europe, and probably they will see Europe as the only way, or the Europeans as their only way to build families. Many of them will be great, absolutely great wives and their moms, of course, and some might not seek family and serious relationships, and they will broke other families, right? That kind of stuff is also happening, but yeah, it is what it is, man. It's a tragedy what had happened in Ukraine. Oh, Nikos is commenting that. Uh, Thank you very much, Jefferson. Once again, I appreciate your support. Thank you. And Nikos is not happy with me also. Let's see why. I don't want to hear you anymore. I'm tired of you. The reason I am here is because there is no alternative for the news on the ground in Russia. I have not heard you for a month. I mean, you don't have to listen to my programs, Nikos. I mean, you know, nobody's forcing you. And nobody is forcing nobody, right? Some people will like my programs, some people will not like my programs, some people will like my programs because of my opinions, some people will dislike my programs exactly because of my opinions, some people will like my programs because of my strange way of speaking English, and some people will hate my programs because the way I speak, right? After all, English is not my first or second or third language. So there is numerous reasons why some people might like my work and why some people might dislike it, right? And everyone is free to choose, man. So it's all good, Nikos. You don't have to watch my updates. But yeah, what can I do, man? I know. Okay, dear friends, sir. Today we don't, we're gonna have a community chat on Sunday, isn't it? On Sunday, so hopefully you will join, and tomorrow I might take tomorrow I might take day off, maybe. I want to have Saturday day off, by the way, so that Friday will be proper Friday, right? And so let's see, dear friends, if nothing extraordinary is happening, maybe tomorrow I will have a day off. Not quite sure yet, but I will come back anyways on Sunday, of course, with a big community chatter, and probably I will launch Sunday's community chatter at 1 p.m., maybe at 12 or maybe 1 p.m. I will let you know. I will let you know through my PayPal, sorry, through my um, Telegram channel, through my Twitter X page, and I will write about it on a YouTube community page. This is it for now. Have a wonderful day. Have a great upcoming weekend, dear friends. Take care and see you next time. Bye.